My name is Rebecca Hart. And I want you to imagine something. Imagine waking up after 23 days. Your eyes slowly open. The ceiling is white. There are tubes in your arm. A machine is beeping next to you. You think, I'm alive. You feel grateful. You feel relieved. But then a nurse walks in. She looks at you with soft eyes. The kind of eyes people use when they are about to deliver bad news. She says, Rebecca, someone is here to see you. And your husband walks in. He is holding divorce papers. Not flowers. Not tears of relief. Not, oh my God, you're alive, I missed you. Divorce papers. And before I could even speak, before I could even ask what was happening, he placed them on my hospital bed and said 7 words I will never forget. The house is no longer yours, Rebecca. I had been in a coma for 23 days. And in those 23 days, my husband had stolen everything. Stay with me. Because what happened next changed my life forever. Let me take you back to the beginning. Because to understand how deeply I was betrayed, you need to understand how much I trusted him. His name was Daniel Hart. We met in Columbus, Ohio when I was 26 years old. I was working as a registered nurse at Riverside Methodist Hospital. He was a contractor who came in for a routine checkup. He was tall. He had dark hair and a warm smile. He brought coffee for the nurses on his 2nd visit. On his 3rd visit, he asked for my number. I thought he was the most thoughtful man I had ever met. We dated for 2 years. He was attentive. He remembered small things. My favorite color. The way I liked my coffee. The fact that I was afraid of thunderstorms. When he proposed, he did it at a small dinner at home. No big crowd. No embarrassing restaurant scene. Just candles, my favorite pasta, and a ring. I cried for 20 minutes. We got married in September 2014. It was a small wedding. Just family and close friends. My mother wore blue. My best friend Carla was my maid of honor. Daniel's sister Vanessa was there too, standing in the front row. I noticed that day that Vanessa never smiled at me. Not once. But I told myself she was just shy. Or nervous. Or maybe she didn't like weddings. I made excuses for her because I loved her brother. That was my first mistake. After we got married, Daniel and I worked hard together. I continued nursing. 12-hour shifts. Night shifts. Weekend shifts. I never complained because I loved what I did and I loved building our future together. Daniel ran his contracting business. Some months were good. Some months were slow. During the slow months, it was my nursing salary that kept us afloat. I never made him feel bad about it. Not once. Because that is what partners do. They hold each other up. In 2017, after 3 years of saving every single dollar we could, we bought our house. 1847, Clearwater Drive. 4 bedrooms. A small backyard with an oak tree. A kitchen with a big window that faced the morning sun. I stood in that empty kitchen the first morning we moved in and I cried again. Happy tears. We had built this together. At least, that is what I believed. Looking back now, I can see every sign. But when you love someone, your heart argues with your gut every single day. And sometimes, the heart wins for too long. The first sign came in early 2020. Daniel started working late. Very late. At first it was 2 or 3 nights a week. Then it became almost every night. He said business was picking up. A big commercial project. Lots of coordination needed. I believed him. Because I was exhausted from my own shifts. I did not have the energy to question him. I came home, made dinner, left his plate in the microwave, and went to sleep. That became our routine. The second sign came a few months later. His sister Vanessa started calling more frequently. And whenever I walked into the room while Daniel was on the phone with her, he would lower his voice. One evening I asked him, "Is everything okay with Vanessa?" He said, "She's just going through some stuff. Nothing serious." I nodded and walked away. The third sign was money. I noticed our joint savings account had less in it than I expected. I asked Daniel about it. He said he had moved some money to a business account to cover project expenses. "I'll put it back next month, Rebecca. Stop worrying." I stopped asking. I trusted him. And that trust was quietly killing me. Then came March 15th, 2022. The day that split my life into two parts. Before and after. I was driving home from a night shift. It was 6:47 in the morning. The sun was just coming up. I remember it was a Tuesday because I was thinking about the grocery list for Wednesday. I remember the light turning green. I remember moving forward. And then I remember nothing. A driver who had not slept in 38 hours ran a red light at 60 miles per hour. He hit my car on the driver's side. I was airlifted to the hospital. And I did not wake up for 23 days, while I was in that hospital bed. While machines were breathing for me. While my mother sat beside me every single day holding my hand and praying. Daniel was busy. My best friend Carla told me everything later. She had been suspicious from the moment she saw Daniel's behavior at the hospital. He visited me twice in 23 days. The nurses noticed. My mother noticed. Carla noticed. He would come in, stand at the foot of my bed for a few minutes, and leave. No tears. No sitting beside me. No talking to me the way they tell families to do, because sometimes people in comas can hear you. He never spoke to me once. On the 8th day of my coma, Daniel went to a lawyer. He filed for divorce on grounds of irreconcilable differences. His lawyer told him that because I was incapacitated, a legal guardian needed to be appointed to represent my interests in the proceedings. But Daniel moved faster than the courts could catch up. On day 11, he transferred the deed of 1847, Clearwater Drive to his sister Vanessa. The house we had bought together. The house my nursing salary had paid more than half the mortgage on. The house with the oak tree in the backyard and the kitchen window that faced the morning sun. He transferred it for $1. A legal transaction. Signed. Notarized. Filed. $1. That is what 11 years of my life was worth to him. Carla found out through a mutual friend who worked at the county records office. She called my mother immediately. My mother, a 61-year-old retired schoolteacher from Cincinnati, walked into that hospital room, looked at her daughter lying unconscious, and made a decision. She called a lawyer that same afternoon. His name was Mr. Gerald Thompson. A real estate and family law attorney with 30 years of experience. My mother sat across from him with a folder of documents and said, "My daughter is in a coma. Her husband is stealing her home. What can we do?" Mr. Thompson looked at the documents. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at my mother and said, "Mrs. Patterson, we can do quite a lot." I opened my eyes on April 7, 2022. The first thing I saw was my mother's face. She was crying. But she was smiling at the same time. That specific kind of crying that only happens when something terrible becomes something miraculous. She grabbed my hand and whispered, "Baby. You came back. You came back to me." I could not speak right away. My throat was raw from the breathing tube. My body felt like it was made of stone. But I was alive. The doctors came in. Nurses, my own colleagues in a different hospital, ran assessments. My brain was intact. My memory was intact. I would need physical therapy for my left side. But I was going to be okay. For about 4 hours. I just felt grateful. And then Daniel walked in. I smiled when I saw him. I actually smiled. I said in a raspy voice, "Hey you." He did not smile back. He set a manila envelope on my bed. He said, "I'm glad you're awake, Rebecca. These are divorce papers. The house has already been transferred. My lawyer will be in touch." And he walked out. I stared at that envelope for a very long time. The room was completely silent. And then my mother reached over, took my hand again, and said very quietly, "Rebecca, I need to tell you some things. And I also need to tell you, we are already fighting back." Over the next 3 days, as I recovered enough to sit up and think clearly, my mother and Carla told me everything. The late nights were not work. Daniel had been in a relationship with a woman named Sasha for nearly 2 years. She was 29. She worked at one of his job sites. Carla had confirmed it through people they both knew. The money missing from our savings account, $43,000, had been quietly moved. Not to a business account. To a personal account that only Daniel controlled. An account I was never told about. And the house, the transfer to Vanessa, was not accidental. Mr. Thompson had already discovered that Vanessa and Daniel had planned this together. There were text messages, obtained legally through the divorce proceedings, where Vanessa said, "Just do it while she's in the hospital. By the time she wakes up, it'll be done." And Daniel had replied, "Already talked to the lawyer. Give me 2 weeks." I read those messages sitting in a hospital bed with a bruised ribcage and a leg brace. I did not cry. I had moved past crying. I was in a completely different place now. "Mr. Thompson," I said on the phone that evening. "Tell me exactly what we can do." He said, "Rebecca, I've been waiting for this call." Mr. Thompson laid out our case clearly. Point 1. The property transfer was done while I was legally incapacitated. I had no representation. No guardian ad litem had been properly appointed before the transfer occurred. This made the transaction legally contestable. Point 2. The transfer price of $1 on a property valued at $340,000 was a clear indicator of fraudulent conveyance, transferring property to avoid it being counted in divorce asset division. Point 3. The $43,000 missing from our joint savings account was marital property. It could not be unilaterally removed without my consent. Point 4. Because I had been working as a nurse and contributing to the mortgage consistently for years, I had significant equitable interest in the property regardless of whose name held the deed. He told me the road ahead would not be easy. Vanessa was already claiming she had paid fair market value. Her lawyer was arguing the $1 figure was a clerical error. I looked at Mr. Thompson and said, "I was in a coma. I was not dead. And I am very much awake now." He smiled for the first time since we had met. I was discharged from the hospital on April 19, 2022. I moved into my mother's house in Cincinnati. I had no home. I had no husband. I had significant medical bills. I was still doing physical therapy 3 times a week for my left arm. But every single morning, I woke up, made coffee, sat at my mother's kitchen table, and worked. I organized every financial document from our marriage. Every bank statement. Every mortgage payment receipt. Every tax return where my nursing income was listed. Every home improvement receipt. I had paid $187,000 toward that house over the years. Every dollar was documented. Meanwhile, Daniel had moved Sasha into 1847, Clearwater Drive. Vanessa had graciously allowed her brother to live in the home she now owned on paper. Carla drove past the house one evening and called me. "Rebecca, there are new curtains in the window." I was quiet for a moment. Then I said, "Good. Enjoy them while they last." The hearing took place on September 8, 2022. Franklin County Court of Common Pleas. I wore a navy blue blazer. My hair was pulled back. I had lost weight during recovery and my clothes fit differently now. But I walked into that courtroom with my back straight. Daniel was already seated with his lawyer. He glanced at me when I walked in. I did not look at him. Vanessa sat in the gallery behind him. She was wearing sunglasses indoors. I noticed her hands were clasped tight in her lap. Mr. Thompson presented our case methodically. He submitted every document, every bank record, every mortgage statement, every tax filing showing my income contribution. He presented the text messages between Daniel and Vanessa. He presented testimony from the notary who had processed the deed transfer, who confirmed that at no point was I or any legal representative contacted before the transfer was completed. He presented a certified appraisal showing the home's market value was $347,500 at the time of transfer. $1. Against $347,500. Daniel's lawyer argued that Daniel had the right to manage marital property. That the transfer was a private family arrangement. The judge, the Honorable Sandra Mitchell, looked up from the documents and said, "Counsel, your client transferred a jointly purchased marital asset for $1 while his wife was in a medically induced coma and had no legal representation. You're describing this as a private family arrangement?" The courtroom was very quiet. Daniel's lawyer said, "Your Honor, we believe." Judge Mitchell raised one hand. "I've seen enough." The ruling came 3 weeks later. October 1, 2022. The deed transfer to Vanessa was declared void. Fraudulent conveyance was confirmed by the court. The house was returned to marital property status for proper division. In the final divorce settlement, because of Daniel's documented dissipation of marital assets, including the $43,000, and the fraudulent property transfer, I was awarded 65% of the home's value. $225,875. Plus the return of $43,000 from the savings account. Plus legal fees paid by Daniel. Total, $268,000 awarded to me. Daniel was ordered to sell the house within 90 days. That meant Sasha had to move out. That meant Vanessa lost the property she thought she had stolen. And that meant Daniel had to find somewhere else to live. I will not pretend the money made everything okay. I spent months in therapy. Physical therapy for my body. Regular therapy for everything else. Because being betrayed by someone you loved for 11 years, that does not heal just because a judge signs a paper. But I used that settlement wisely. I paid off all my medical bills. I bought a small townhouse in Dublin, Ohio. 2 bedrooms. A little porch. Morning sunlight in the kitchen. I went back to nursing in January 2023. My colleagues threw me a small welcome back gathering. One of the older nurses hugged me and said, "We missed you, Rebecca." I cried in the break room for 5 minutes. Happy tears. Again. As for Daniel. The forced sale of 1847, Clearwater Drive left him with only 35% of the equity after covering the mortgage balance and legal fees. He walked away with less than $60,000 from a home that had been worth nearly $350,000. He and Sasha are no longer together. I heard through Carla that they lasted about 4 months after the court ruling. Vanessa faced a separate civil claim Mr. Thompson filed on my behalf for her participation in the fraudulent transfer. She settled out of court. I do not know the terms. I did not need to know. I had already moved on. I was in a coma for 23 days. And while I slept, people who were supposed to love me decided I was no longer useful. That I was gone. That they could take what we had built and divide it among themselves before I had a chance to fight back. They forgot one thing. I woke up. And I want every woman watching this to hear me. It does not matter how deep they bury you. It does not matter how many papers they file or how many lawyers they hire or how certain they are that you are finished. You are never finished. Document everything. Know your rights. Find people who fight for you. And never, not for one single moment, let anyone convince you that what you built with your own hands does not belong to you. My name is Rebecca Hart. I woke up. And I took everything back. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today.